Welcome back to Inside City Hall. We are turning our attention now to Washington, D.C., where Democrats are busy preparing to move into the majority of the House of Representatives after years of Republican control. Part of that includes deciding who will fill some key leadership roles. Brooklyn Congressman Hakeem Jeffries is vying to become one of the top House Democrats, and he joins me now from our Washington, D.C. bureau to talk about that and so much more. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be with you, Grace.
So our understanding is that you have put yourself out there. You are trying to run for the #4 position in the House leadership for Democrats, the Democratic Caucus chair. How is that going, and what would that mean for New York, for your district, if you're able to get that position?
Well, it's an important position. It's a position that is currently held by Joe Crowley, who has done a phenomenal job serving the people of Queens and the Bronx that he represents, as well as having been a tremendous asset to the nation and to Democrats in the House of Representatives as the current chair. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to present my candidacy to my colleagues on Wednesday, November 28th. That is the date of the election. I'm currently engaged in talking to colleagues from the north, the south, the east, and the west, all over the country, the great Democratic gorgeous mosaic that is represented by the caucus, about what we need to be doing as House Democrats to deliver for the American people since they've handed us the opportunity to govern.
So what, just following up on that point, what do House Democrats need to be doing? Because right now we are seeing some people on the left, and the far left in particular, that are almost salivating. Now the Democrats are about to take the majority. They want to see impeachment hearings against Trump, or at the very least, they want to see the Trump administration tied up in oversight hearings by the House. Is that the right move for Democrats come January?
We as House Democrats need to keep our focus on pocketbook, kitchen table issues that will improve the quality of life of the American people. We campaigned on a closing argument that talked about us working for the people, not for the wealthy, the well-off, or the well-connected, for working families, middle-class folks, senior citizens, the poor, the sick, the afflicted, veterans, and people from all throughout America. And so we've got to deliver. And we talked about 3 specific things that we wanted to work on in the majority: lowering health care costs, increasing pay for everyday Americans through a real infrastructure plan, and cleaning up corruption and the mess that has been left behind by the Trump administration and Republicans in the House and the Senate. And so we've got to focus on doing those things as soon as we are in control after January 3rd.
But Congressman, what about the idea that Democrats in their role, soon-to-be role as majority leaders in the House, should be providing checks and balances on the Trump administration? We've heard that line from Nancy Pelosi herself on election night, saying this will restore checks and balances that were laid out in the Constitution. Is oversight of the Trump administration not a part of that?
Well, that is an important part of what we will be obligated to do in the majority. As you point out correctly, Grace, the Constitution sets forth separate and co-equal branches of government. My colleagues in the Republican Party serving in the House have basically abdicated that responsibility and served as the cover-up caucus for all manner of things that were done inappropriately by Donald Trump and his administration. So we have to deal with that and serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch. That's what the Founding Fathers intended. But we also can't be overly aggressive in our oversight responsibilities and take our eye off the prize, which is to get things done on behalf of the American people as it relates to lowering the high cost of prescription drugs or strengthening the Affordable Care Act, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, and dealing with other kitchen table pocketbook issues that will make a real difference in the lives of the American people.
So let's talk about Nancy Pelosi for a minute, because I know you've been supportive of her, but your name nevertheless is coming up more and more frequently as a potential replacement for her. And in fact, Bloomberg had a story out today about Democrats who could replace Nancy Pelosi as the next Speaker of the House. And your name is at the top of the list. And they point to some Democrats who are clamoring for generational change. They say they want younger voices, and you're being cited as one of those young voices some people want to see rise up to potentially be the next speaker as early as next year.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if my mother wrote that article. I've heard about it. I haven't gotten a chance to see it.
I don't think she had that byline.
Well, no, certainly, you know, I support Nancy Pelosi, as you've pointed out, and I think she will be the next Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. We do need to begin the process of generational change and transitioning into the foreseeable future the next generation of members of the House of Representatives who can continue to serve this country and get things done on behalf of the American people. One of the reasons why I've decided to put myself forward as a candidate for chair of the House Democratic Caucus is because it will provide an opportunity to build upon some of the work that I was able to do as one of the chairs of the Democratic messaging apparatus in this current Congress and continue that work to make sure that we proceed with message discipline and operational unity as it relates to our legislative agenda. We'll see what the future holds beyond that, but I've learned in these races that the most important thing to do is to conquer the territory that is in front of you. And this is a competitive race with Barbara Lee from California, who I respect tremendously, will articulate visions for how to move the Democratic caucus and the country forward. May the best person win. So I'm focused on that race right now, and we'll see what happens on November 28th.
Well, one final question in our last minute, Congressman. I'm wondering, should you get this position, either way, now that the Democrats are in the majority, what can you do to help New York City in particular? When we look at issues like public housing, areas that are so in need of more federal assistance, is there anything that the Democratic majority can do in Congress to help New York?
Well, we've got to make sure that the federal government gets back into the business of affordable housing, which means the creation of low-income housing and moderate-income housing, because increasingly working families and middle-class folks and senior citizens are getting pushed out of the neighborhoods that I represent in Brooklyn and many other neighborhoods all throughout New York City. And in order for us to turn the situation around, the federal government is going to have to be a part of the solution. We've said if we have a $1 trillion infrastructure plan that Democrats have proposed, which will create 16 million good-paying jobs, hopefully many of them in the city of New York, that will benefit the people that I represent. But also, as part of that $1 trillion infrastructure plan, we want to set aside $70 billion to support public housing throughout the nation. And of course, New York City has the largest public housing stock in America, as well as the communities surrounding public housing developments, which often are disadvantaged from a socioeconomic standpoint. And so if we can get this bipartisan infrastructure plan done with a significant amount of money set aside for housing, that will certainly directly benefit the city of New York.
Congressman, thank you so much for speaking with us. I know it's a busy time. It's also an exciting time for you as we get closer to January and you prepare to be part of the majority in the House of Representatives. We're going to leave it there, and we'll see you next time. It is time for a quick break. Coming up from